Hello, and welcome to Insightful Conversations with your host, Three Principles practitioner, Adey-Jones. Join her each week as she welcomes some of the world's leading Three Principles teachers and practitioners who share how this understanding has dramatically improved the quality of their lives and the lives of those they work with.
I'm very excited to have Elizabeth Lykins with me today. Elizabeth is a writer, publisher, transformational coach, and medical provider. She recently authored Reflections on Transcendence, an inspirational art book featuring the paintings of renowned expressionist artist Stephen Lykins. The book is designed to get the reader out of their intellect and into a reflective space where they can look within for answers. She is also the CEO and publisher of Magnificent Metamorphosis magazine, Inspiration for Positive Change, a quarterly magazine available on the App Store, Google Play, and magsfast.com. Each issue includes inspiring articles by a variety of contributors on mindfulness, arts, music, healthy living, people for positive change, and more. Hi, Libby. Thank you so much for joining me today. We got lots to talk about. I'm very excited. But before we get into, I have to say, I have your book here. I love.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, it's just, I really want to talk about this. But before we get into that and the magazine, I'd love to hear how you first came across the principles and when you first came across them.
I think it was 2014, and I had just studied NLP, and I came across Jamie Smart. And I was looking for these cards that he had made with NLP questions, and I saw that he wasn't really involved in NLP anymore. And so I basically looked him up, and I joined one of his Glasswing programs, and that's how I really initially came across the principles, kind of in a weird way.
Yeah. But it's actually not that weird. I think I've heard that answer from so many people. What was it about the principles that hooked you? What was one of your first major insights? So what was it that drew you in? I'd love to hear that.
I was raised by an American Baptist minister.
Oh, wow.
And so watching what happens behind the scenes in a church setting, I wanted to have nothing to do with religion.
Wow.
And so I started to get interested in Eastern philosophy, and a lot of that touched me in a way, but it still seemed to be dogmatic. I mean, there was always some sort of a group that you had to have some hierarchy, and I wasn't interested in that because I'd seen that in my youth, and I didn't want that. And so I think the principles for me just made all of that make sense so simply.
Yeah.
That you really, and I'm a very intellectual person, or was more so. And so I would try to think my way out of things. And it, as you know, it just doesn't work. It creates tons of anxiety, and you get down a rabbit hole. And it was so freeing for me not to realize that when I get involved in my head, I just need to step out of it, and then everything's okay.
Yeah. Well, I completely resonate with everything you just said. As a former Catholic schoolgirl, my mother was an atheist, but the nuns, she sent us to a private convent school, and they weren't very kind. So I had a really hard time with Western religion, but was very drawn to Eastern religion. But again, had the same thing. I have a resistance to this hierarchy, and I love that does not exist in the principles. And it's all about, trusting your own wisdom. And, I love that. It just resonates so much with me. So I have to say, I'm going to get into your book here, because I have to say one of my favorite books is Elsie Spittle's Nuggets of Wisdom. And when I started reading this, I was like, oh my God, this is as good as Elsie's. So I love what you've done here. I love you have quotes from some incredible, Eckhart Tolle and Khalil Gibran and people like that. And then you make a commentary underneath. So I love how you pull in the other sort of spiritual teachings and combine that with the principles. So tell me more about that. What was the inspiration behind that?
Well, I had an app prior to having the digital magazine, and a lot of that content came from using images and making memes in particular, and then reflecting on what those quotes would say as little short, brief, one-page little nuggets in this app. And so I was already used to gathering quotes. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I wasn't thinking about it at all. I have a lifelong friend who's the artist in the book, who I just thought of him, and I thought, wouldn't it be lovely to have his artwork mixed with quotes and reflections on the quotes to put them in context? And so I reached out to him, and I've known him since we were children, and he said, sure. And that's how it began. It's just, I think I was in the kitchen doing, making a meal or something when that hit me, and it wouldn't leave me. And so I thought, okay, maybe I should pursue this.
Yeah. Well, that's such a great demonstration of wisdom in action. It usually comes in when we're completely preoccupied with doing something else, and then we just get this hit, and it's like, oh, I wasn't planning on that, but that sounds like fun. So that's
yes, and I wasn't planning on it at all. I mean, it's a lot of work to write a book. And there's a lot of collaboration with other people and all of that, and finding a publisher and all of that. And I really wasn't planning on that, but it just hit me like a lightning bolt, actually. And so I thought, okay, I better pursue this.
Wonderful. And how long ago was it you started it? Because I'm in the midst of writing a book that's taking a lot longer than I thought.
Yes, I think it was probably almost 3 years ago that I started the manuscript and gathering and writing this short little chapters at the beginning. And then after I had reached out to, the manuscript was completed by the time I reached out to Steve. And then had to format it and do it artistically. I appreciate art, but I'm certainly not an artist. And so his assistant basically read the manuscript and selected all the images. And at the end, he said, no, I don't want that one there. I want this one there. And so, and I did the text formatting myself. And I actually had to argue a little bit with the editors, because I said, no, I want it to look like this. And they went with it. So.
Oh. Well, it's stunning, and the artwork as well is absolutely beautiful. So really, really wonderful job. It will definitely be on my Christmas, giving this book out for my Christmas presents this year, because you can just open it any page and just get this wonderful sort of hit of inspiration. So I really love that. So
that was kind of the design too, is just to open it anywhere.
Exactly, just dip in. So is this what led to the magazine, the Magnificent Metamorphosis magazine, or was that another one of those wonderful hits from wisdom?
No, this was a bit more practical. The app that I had, the platform that I used to host the app was hacked with ransomware, and they wanted $1 gazillion, and so the people who own the platform said, no, we're not going to do that. So they built it from the ground up, but not as many people were using the app section, but a lot of people were using their magazine platform. And they said, hey, we're not going to redo the app platform. Do you want to do a magazine? I thought, oh, geez, I don't want to do that. I was in the middle of doing the book. And I thought, why not? Why not? So it was a more practical, it wasn't a lightning bolt of wisdom. It was more of a practical thing.
I love that wisdom talks to us in many different ways. Some people think it needs to come with a certain tone to it and a certain sort of booming, godlike voice. And it's like, no, it can just, pop in anyway. So, and again, what I love about the magazine is that you don't just do the 3 principles. Tell us more about the magazine and how you select the articles and everything to go in it.
Well, I wanted it to not exclusively be the 3 principles, because I think there are so many different ways of pointing us in the same direction. Eckhart Tolle, for example, is one of my favorites. And so I wanted to touch upon all these different ways so that the readers wouldn't just think that this was something that was in the 3 principles exclusive movement that they don't know anything about. And so I try to incorporate art and music and anything inspirational. It doesn't necessarily have to be three principles based. When you get into art and music, it's not always the case, but something that inspires people to get out of their head and into a more reflective place, with some articles that actually are informational as well. But it is, as you've seen, it's pretty heavily mindfulness based. And a lot of the people that I have contribute, because I know people in the community, are three principles practitioners, but not exclusively.
No, and I love that. And, I mean, this show is exclusively three principles.
Yeah.
But I used to have a show before this called Del and Debbie's Mind, Body, Soul with a fellow co-host. And we would do that. We would choose things that were in the, she's a health and fitness coach, and I was the spiritual and the psychology person. And we would just, have a whole holistic approach in it. And it was great fun. It was wonderful. And then I just sort of dove really into the principles. But I like the idea of getting the principles all out there more mainstream, but alongside with mindfulness. I mean, it's become a little sort of, I feel a little closed or a little incestuous sometimes. And it's so, like you mentioned, it's not saying anything new. We've heard it before in any spiritual tradition, but there's just a way that Sid uncovered it that is so simple, so easy for us to grasp. And I just see that it would be so beneficial to so many people that don't want to get involved in a spiritual, sort of traditional spiritual practice or a religion or anything like that.
Yes, and that's what I'm trying to accomplish with the magazine, is that people will be interested in it as something positive. Just that's it, just something positive, and it's listed in a lifestyle section in the magazine world. And once people come across looking at positive articles, then they're going to be influenced by what drove these authors to come to a positive place. And so I think in many different ways, it can appeal to a broader group of people than just, I think in the three principles community, which I love, we often stay within ourselves and don't branch out to people who are just desperately needing it because it's comfortable.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. I think it can be, we're also having such a great time. We're all loving the conversation that we sort of forget that if people find us, it's wonderful. Oh, you come across the principles, wonderful. But I think I like to see it, as Sid used to do in the early days, take it into prisons, taking it into places where people might not have the luxury of finding it. So means that we can do that is wonderful. So I want to go back a little bit in your history, because I know that you have worked in the healthcare industry for many years. Tell us a bit about that, and did that impact how you evolved into going into sort of coaching and the work you're doing today?
Yes, and I'm still work not as much as I did in the past. I'm still working part-time, basically, but it seems like full-time. In urgent care, I trained in emergency medicine, and so now I work in urgent care, which you have more of a life and a better schedule. But I think the grind of medicine and all that you see, especially when I was in emergency medicine, if you allow it to, it can really take you down because you see the worst of society, and you can become very jaded. And I didn't want to be. And so I had to do something to pull myself out of that mindset. And I don't know if you know any people personally that work in emergency medicine in particular, but you can become easily jaded because of what you see. You see things like the police see or like people in prison see. Yeah. And so I needed to find some peace with that. And so that's what really led me to look for something better than the mindset that I had at the time, which was doom and gloom, basically.
how did that impact then how you showed up in your work and how you related to the people you were caring for?
Oh, it's dramatically changed that. One of the types of people I like to see the least in the past were people with anxiety, because you had to spend a lot of time with them, and I didn't have the time, and I had to just, in emergency medicine, you just have to go, 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 go. And now when someone comes in urgent care, and I have a little more luxury of time now, but I actually like dealing with the anxiety patients because I have tools to help them. And I don't give them any medication. If I do, it's just for something for sleep, like a Visceral, which is like a Benadryl drug, so that they're not, getting on drugs that can be addictive. And I give them a handout that has some videos by Sid, by Eckhart Tolle, and some other links that they can listen to relaxing music and things. So I spend probably 15 or 20 minutes with them, which is a long time in an urgent care. But I really enjoy it, and it's changed dramatically how I interact with patients, because most of what they come in for is, whether it's anxiety or not, currently there's a huge anxiety component with folks because of all that we're dealing with. And so it has dramatically changed the way that I deal with people and the way that I see people.
Yeah. Oh, that's so beautiful. I love that. We need that in our urgent care. Actually, they're lovely, but just to have somebody like you be able to sort of hand out a little pamphlet or something with resources and helping people see beyond their symptoms of anxiety and thinking that the only way to overcome that is through medication, which can have severe side effects and create even more problems. So that's
Yes.
great. That's wonderful. So so I also noticed that I read that you do some work with clients over weight loss and things like that too. So tell me how that came about?
Well, I at one point was working I was a clinician manager at a local, pretty large low carb weight loss center. And so it became a practical thing. And I thought, well, why don't I just provide more resources for people? And I did coaching in weight loss for a while, and then I just branched out of that. But I still wanted to keep the website going so that people still had resources to help them that were simple, so that they could essentially help to change their health. But as we all know, it's not just losing weight.
Yeah.
It's you have to see your life differently, or no matter what you try to do, whether it's weight or anything else, or exercise or anything you're trying, those are just rote mechanical things that we do. But if you don't change your mindset about it, then nothing permanently changes. Probably never more so than weight.
Yeah. And especially when we don't know the role of thought in our life, and we're feeling our thinking, and we're thinking the only thing we can do about it is to sort of stuff it down with food or numb it out with alcohol or something like that.
Yes.
So do you incorporate the 3 principles into the weight loss coaching you do as well?
Well, I'm not currently doing weight loss coaching per se, but if people have an issue with weight, I do give them resources, practical resources, as well as mostly it's your mindset.
Mm-hmm.
So no matter what we do, it's your mindset, and the way that your thinking can get in the way when you think that something else outside of you is causing your problems, or even that someone outside of you will save you. That's never true. Never true.
Exactly.
But we think it is. Most people think it is.
No, 100%.
Yeah.
So right now in the current climate with this, COVID and everything building up again, when somebody comes to you, or they're exhibiting, anxiety and things, I'm just curious in that moment, besides giving them a pamphlet for them to research, because right now I can see a lot of people being very this is the but, the big but it doesn't apply here because,
Right.
my life has changed drastically. I've lost my job. I'm scared for my health. So tell me how, if you're encountering somebody like that, that, that is feeling that way, how do you approach that?
Well, I usually say to the person, well, I think that anxiety is just thinking about a future that may not ever happen, thank God. And then I look at them and I say, right now in this room, you and I are okay. And they all pause. They all pause and they're like, yeah. I said, so whatever you think may happen might not ever happen. So if you just keep coming back to right now in this room, looking around me, I'm okay, then you won't get sucked up into that hamster wheel or torrent or, flowing river, or whatever analogy we want to use to get you off track. And so it's interesting because most people come in there wanting medication. They want a quick fix, like the McDonald's drive-through, everything has to be fast. And rarely do I ever have anyone push back for medication unless that's all they wanted in the first place. Mm-hmm. And usually they have an addictive sort of problem. But I can only think of one person, honestly, in the last year that's even gotten upset that they didn't get medication.
That's so amazing. I mean, I know what you mean. It's like anytime I'm suffering, it's usually because I'm in the future or in the past.
Me too. Not right here, right now.
Exactly. And more often than not, it's so funny. I have a sister who's always in the past. It's always about regret. If only I had this or whatever it is. And I thought, oh my God, this is so interesting because mine is mostly in the future. The past to me is gone. I can't go back there. But boy, can I invest in the future. So
yes. Well, I can go back and forth, but I'm less in the past now and more in the future, I think.
I know. I mean, I remember even with this, when COVID first hit, there was some financial impact on me, and I started to sort of go into the future. And then and it was wisdom, just went, and it's a joke, but it was like, you don't know what's going to happen with this pandemic. You might not even be around for the future. So why waste the moment? Why waste this moment you have right now, right here, worrying about a future, as you said earlier, that might not even come about. So,
right.
It wasn't. So that was my little wake up call of like, back to center, back here, back right now.
Well, and I think everything has changed for everyone right now. I mean, everything. I mean, it's, I'm fortunate that I haven't had the financial impact that most people have because I'm in I have the urgent care to fall back on. Mm-hmm. But it is hugely impactful in every way. So if you're anxious about your health and you also worried about losing your home and not feeding your kids and losing your health insurance and all of that, it's a lot for people to deal with. It really is.
No, it is, exactly. And that is the beauty of this understanding. It's not diminishing. I always, when people sort of, I think, innocently think, well, it's all just my thinking. It's all just my thinking. But, I always think, well, Sid said that life is a contact sport,
Yes.
We are.
Very much so.
Sometimes life just pushes up against us and, we can feel a little battered and bruised by it. But, and I often think of Viktor Frankl too. It's not that things aren't happening. It's how we respond, how we think is due to our thinking in the moment. So it's not denying that stuff is happening, which I think is very important to always take into consideration, especially when people are going through a very, very difficult time. I think it sometimes feels dismissive to just sort of be, as you're thinking, it's all an illusion.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. I remember when I first came into the principles, I remember hearing that, and I think I just experienced the third death in 8 months in my family. There was my sister, my sister-in-law, my mother. I was feeling a little battered by it. And to have somebody say, "Oh, it's just your thinking," was not helpful. But
no, that phrase is not helpful. I think that while it may be true,
exactly,
it's not helpful.
we can use that one down the line a bit.
Yes.
But it was interesting. It was actually my mother's death. I'm one of 7 children, where I really got to see that we all responded so differently to it. Varying. I mean, massive varying degrees. So you really see it's not the outside in, it's how we ultimately process or our thinking about what is happening in the world of form is how we experience it. So it's not a blanket, everybody's going to feel this way for sure.
Right.
So what's next for you, even though you're very, very busy? I mean, still working in the healthcare profession. Producing this magazine, there's got to be a lot of work involved in that.
It is.
Yeah. So tell me what's next. What other things do you do?
Well, I participate in martial arts with my daughter, who is a very shy young lady. She's 17 now. And so it has made a huge difference with her confidence. Yeah. And it's brought her out of her shell quite a bit. So I'm very interested in that. We also volunteer at the local animal shelter and give loves and cuddles to the dogs that are really anxious. Very anxious. So my daughter in particular has such a calming influence. The animals just, as soon as she pets them, they just kind of calm right down because they can feel that, I guess. It's really uplifting to do that. We do that a couple of hours a week. And so I haven't really planned anything other than that at this point. So
enjoy.
Who knows what pops up.
I know you seem pretty willing to just follow whatever. Me too. It's like wisdom comes up with these things and I'm like, really? That? Okay, then. I just follow it. Yeah, it's such a relief not to live up here all the time thinking that it's up to me what I plan and what I organize in my life. It's a very freeing place to come from. So if you we're coming to the end of our time together, I'd love you to just, if there's anything you'd like to just share with anybody that's listening, any words of hope, or especially as we were saying, this is a challenging time for a lot of people. I'd love you to just share some wonderful last reflections with us.
Well, what I've come to myself, I think, is what I like to share with other people is that no matter, and I also have to remind myself this all the time, no matter what is going on around us, nothing has the power to affect who we are, who we really are. And it can only impact us negatively if we let it. And I think I'm inspired the most by Anne Frank, actually, when you think of her circumstances and the positivity that she still had to the end. I could only aspire to be like that. But I think that's what I would like to learn myself and continue to reflect on. And if I could share that with the world, that's really the point of my magazine and the book and all the work that I'm doing is that we have the power to be who we want to be and not affected by circumstances.
Yeah, that's so simple, but it's so true. So many of us are unaware of that. We exist in this world. We live our lives not with not knowing that we really ultimately do have the power over how we experience life. It's not being done to us.
Yes.
So that's beautiful. So for people that are listening to the podcast and not seeing the video, can you share your website, how people can find you? Because I know you do individual coaching as well. So
yes, it's a long website, but it's a magnificentmetamorphosis.com is the website where to find me.
Wonderful. It's been so lovely talking to you and meeting you, and thank you for publishing my piece in your magazine, and I look forward to writing another piece for you soon. So it's a wonderful, wonderful platform, and I'm so grateful you have that.
Thank you for contributing.
Lovely to meet you, and thank you again.
Likewise. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the show. If you're interested in learning more about my coaching and mentoring packages, please reach out to me at deladeyjones@gmail.com. I would love to hear from you.